Women have some beautiful butts, I can tell you that.
What is up, my peoples? Jeff, I'm here to give you a surprise video. Remember, a couple months ago, I told you guys that I'll be having a radio interview with people from the university. Well, I just remembered that they posted the interview on their website. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I promised you guys that I'll actually show it. So, I have it here, all downloaded, and you can actually listen to the radio interview of me promoting my comic and my First Friday art show that happened back in August. So, it's in the past. It's not too far in the past, but it'll be nice. I was so excited to have my very first radio interview, and it was so awesome. So I want to share that experience with you guys. All right. Without further ado, here it is.
By the Number by Guy Mitchell. You are listening to KSUA 91.5. This is The Downtowner, brought to you by the Downtown Association of Fairbanks. I am your host, Mr. Downtown. We just finished up some great conversation with Samantha Reynolds and with Kate Wood. This is a great show. We've got one more guest for you. I'm excited. This is the first time we've ever had a cartoonist on the show. I would ask you to applaud, but you're all driving or listening at home. Without further ado, I will say hello, Jeff. How are you, buddy?
I'm good.
We've got Jeff Mojica, a cartoonist for JFM Studios, and he has a First Friday show next Friday at Expressions in Glass. I've got so many questions for you, Jeff.
Okay.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
And so does Dawson.
I do. I'm attentive here.
All right, Jeff. So, assuming, folks don't know, you're a cartoonist.
That's right.
You consider yourself a cartoonist.
Yep.
What do you draw? What kind of cartoons?
Well, basically, I just draw what I call tooname. It's an art style mix between Western and anime.
Tooname makes sense.
Mm-hmm. I was inspired by the Pokemon style. I was a big Pokemon nut when I was a kid, and I was writing stories back then. I'm like, man, I want to draw my own Pokemon series. So I drew that. That's how I made up my first character, Jeff. And yeah, but pretty much when I kept drawing, it evolved, and it turned into my own art style. And that's how art styles are formed. They were basically rip-offs. And
that's called doujinshi. It's accepted in Japan. So much like Pokemon, your art style evolved.
Mm-hmm.
That's very cool. You started when you were 7, right?
That's right.
So you've been drawing for a long time.
Yep.
Pokemon got you started. I'm curious though, like what keeps you going? Where do you find your inspiration?
Well, as a kid, I always wanted to be somebody. Like, I want to be good at something. I mean, a lot of boys in my class were good at sports, and my interest was art and telling stories. And I would write these stories and read them to my classmates. I mean, literally, I just read them in front of the class when the teacher had time, and it was cool. But I just loved it, and I really wanted my own stuff to be out there in comic book stores or television. And basically have my stuff be all I want my stuff to be the next big thing, basically.
Speaking of the next big thing, right? So you do a webcomic called Jeff and Taylor.
Yep.
Can you give us a synopsis of that webcomic?
Well, Devin Taylor is a comic series about two teenage boys on misadventures in their hometown of Somerville. Basically, the whole story arc takes place throughout their 8th grade year, a year where the biggest and best things happen to them, like meeting new friends, learning valuable life lessons, and taking down an underground crime syndicate, Team Starhammer.
That just happens.
Yeah.
That just happens.
Naturally.
Every 8th grader has that situation happen.
All in all, it's a lighthearted story with lovable characters, strange villains, supernatural weirdness, and action. It's fun for preteens, teenagers, and adults alike.
That's the great thing about so much animation, not just historically, but now, is that anybody can get into it. You're 8, you're 80, there's something for everybody. And I have to say, I did go through issue 1.
Yeah.
And That's when they fight. Is it the G box?
The G Station.
The G Station, right. And there's this great sort of like classic one-liner that you end it with where he's about to take out Jeff.
Yep.
And he goes, any last words? And Jeff goes, eat magnet.
Yeah.
Because, right, what's the one enemy of like a game console? Is a magnet.
Uh-huh.
I just thought that was so good. So you've been drawing since you were 7. How many different, how many different story arcs have you explored with these characters, Jeff and Taylor?
Well, let's see. I have I plan ahead. I have like 112 stories planned.
Really?
Like 112 issues in the whole entire series.
Great and you're up to issue, what?
11.
You have a lot of stories left to tell.
Yeah.
So would you say you're more of like a storyteller? Like you're an artist by trade, but like a storyteller at heart?
Yeah. I'm basically a storyteller. I mean, I would love to just have all the art drawn. But yeah, it's basically, the story to me is like the most important thing. Of course, the drawing and the art can really draw a person in. No pun intended.
No, you can have pun intended. This is the Downtowner.
Perfect.
But still, I just love telling stories. It's the big thing. And with Jeff and Taylor, it's character development and story. Those are the two big things.
So you have a show coming up, Expressions in Glass, next Friday. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I first started hearing about First Fridays a long time ago, but I didn't really think it happened here in town.
It's like a mythical thing.
Uh-huh. It wasn't until my friend Shannon Waterbury actually announced that she was going to have a First Friday show in April, and in Expressions in the Glass, and I was like, hey, that's interesting. I never knew that Fairbanks was so interested in art, or at least cartooning, you know. So I visited her show. It was great, and I talked to the owner, Debbie, in Expressions in Glass, and I set up a little show myself for August, and yeah, and that's where it started. And I hope.
So what are you going to have on display at the show?
Well, I have Jeff and Taylor volumes 1, 2, and 3 for sale, and I'll show some prints of my best work. I'll even sell some prints that's like a 9x12 print of basically this giant robot called Acid 500. Oh, he's not really giant. He's like 7 feet tall or something.
That's a pretty big giant robot.
That's a great name too. Oh man.
Yeah, he shoots acid out of his cannon arm. So yeah,
that's got some elements of like Fooly Cooly to it. I like that. And the art style I looked at, actually, I remember seeing Acid 500, 5,000?
500.
500. I was right the first time. And it looked like something out of Invader Zim.
Yeah, it kind of looks like that Invader Zim logo.
So it's not just me. Okay. And this is, what time is this going to be on Friday?
It'll be 5 p.m. to 8 p.m.
And you're actually going to be there, right?
Yes.
So if people want to know more, they want to ask you questions, you're there to answer those questions.
Yep.
That's very cool. Very cool. So not only do you do the comic Jeff and Taylor, you do a lot of other kinds of art too, correct?
Yep.
Like what sort of stuff are you working on now?
Well, I'm experimenting with basically my anatomy. That's important. I do have one self-portrait of me in the show, which is, it's a realistic portrait. So I'm really practicing on my realism. And I'm also working on some more comic stories. I'm going to be working on my first chapter of my new series called Whirly Bird. It should be... I'm planning to work on it on October, but I'm going to write the script in September. So, yeah, lots of different projects in the distant future.
You're staying super busy.
Yeah.
And where can people find more information about you online?
Well, I have many different places. Well, basically, if you have a Twitter account, you can find me at JFM_studios. I have a Tumblr, JFM Studios, and what else? Oh, the Jeff and Taylor website, jeffandtaylorcomic.com, where you can read all the issues and the different strips and gags and the character bios. It's a really fun website.
So, Jeff, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
Telling us about your show. JFM Studios' first Friday art show will feature the work of cartoonist Jeff Mojica. August 7th, 5 to 8 p.m. at Expressions in Glass. If you want more information, 474-3923. And what's your website again, Jeff?
jeffandtaylorcomic.com.
Beautiful. We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be back with a little more chit-chat between Dawson and myself. To tide you over until then, I beg of you, please, 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 by Fiona Apple. Please, please, please. You are listening to KSUA 91.5.
OMG!